Hello and welcome to today's video. My name is Ginie. If you're new here, a little bit about my chart. I am a 6'2" self-projected projector. I have a defined head, ajna, throat, and G-center, and they're all connected straight down the middle channels, making me a pure individual. It's been a minute since I've added that into the intros of my videos because I felt like I was starting to get a little bit annoyed with it, so I figured maybe if you've been here before, maybe you might have too. So I stopped doing it, but now I feel like including it because this video, I'm kind of hoping, or I've set this intention that maybe it'll reach a bit of a wider audience because of the subject that I'm going to be talking about. And I'm going to be talking about the projector aura. And first of all, I'm going to share a little bit of like what inspired this video because my 61, I don't know, I like digging into the why. So if you're curious about that, I'm going to talk about that first. If you're not, well, you can scroll a few minutes over and then we'll get to the like main part of the content. But I was having a conversation with a friend who is also a self-projected projector, and before this particular conversation, they had shared that they lived in an apartment building and how they had these neighbors that they found a little bit annoying because it was really loud, and they felt like there was one wall in particular that felt a little bit thinner than others, so they felt like they were absorbing a lot from their neighbors. And when they originally shared that, I kind of got this flashback to when I was younger, and I was around, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10, or anywhere from 9 to 11, 12, and we lived in this apartment that also had, obviously we had neighbors on the bottom and on the side, and I remembered how much it was always a struggle for me to get out of bed in the morning. Now, I always attributed it to not being much of a morning person. That really hasn't changed much. I feel like I tend to wake up more like after 3, 4 in the afternoon. That's where I feel like my best mentally. But I hadn't thought about how much I could potentially be picking up on from the neighbors, especially because like the apartment wasn't very big. I don't remember so much hearing like a lot of noise or things like that, but connecting that to how I've noticed how much I can pick up on, like how far out someone could be from me, and I could still pick up things. Like I've always known that I've been very sensitive, because like I don't remember like what the typical range is, but for me it can go anywhere from 8 to 10 feet at least. I could really start picking up on things. But anyways, I started thinking about that, like, oh, I had never thought that maybe it was the neighbors, like I was picking up on so much that's why I felt like so overwhelmed and so bogged down. And also I didn't have the language, or I didn't know how to explain what it was that I was feeling, or maybe I just assumed that I was more like weak in the sense of like health issues. I always attributed a lot of my issues to I'm just not very strong, or like I'm not very healthy. And it was until recently, this year, I think, that I realized, oh, all those times that I felt like not well, it was really just emotions or stuff that I was picking up on from my environment. So that was kind of like the piece that connected for me when we had this conversation earlier. But recently it came up again, and they shared again on how they felt like they might be picking up on a lot from the neighbors. And this time I felt called to share a practice that I personally have used and I continue to use because it is a practice. And when I shared it with them, they invited me to create this video and share it with more people, because not only did they see like how they did experience a shift in energy, but they also tried this exercise with their mom, and their mom is actually a generator. I believe, I don't remember if she's got an undefined head or an undefined ajna, can't quite recall, but her mom is starting to feel really overwhelmed with like the current state of world affairs and all that, and she shared that practice with her mom, and within just a few minutes or seconds, like she felt the shift, she started to feel better. So that's kind of like the reason why, the inspiration behind this video. So now I'm going to share with y'all what I shared with her. And okay, Please do keep in mind that all my channels are part of individual circuitry. I don't love the term like pure individual because, okay, there's a whole nother video about that, but okay. I also do have a lot of lines that are 6 lines, so I am really big on looking at what hasn't been done. And I like experimenting, and I think like I'm my own guinea pig. I'll get an idea or an insight and I'll try it for myself, see what happens, I'll tweak it, and then a lot of this stuff is the things that I use with people that I work with clients, suggestions that I share with them so that they can play with it, make it their own, and then help them step into a more empowering experience. My whole design is essentially about empowerment. So if you are looking solely for source-based information, I'm gonna tell you, you're probably, this isn't all just source-based material or content. I do like to read source material when I feel the nudge, but I go off more from my experience. How can I tweak the energy? How can I tweak the dynamics here, play with the energy, manage it, guide it, so that my experience is a more favorable one. So I'm going to go ahead and say that. If you still feel called to staying, well then keep watching. If you're purely source-based, a lot of what I might share might not resonate with you, and that's okay. So one of the first things that I shared with my friend was that how I can get really triggered when I hear other projectors say things like, as a projector, like, we just absorb everything. Now, do keep in mind that a lot of what I've read with like human design, the book, the main textbook, the definitive book of human design, says that human design is not a belief system. However, as humans, I would invite you to contemplate at how many things that you read from source material or people who are creating content on human design, how much of that stuff are we turning into a belief that isn't necessarily serving us? Because beliefs are so powerful. Like, if you really believe something, it's more likely for that to be a part of your experience. When you start loosening your grip on the belief, then and start to be open to a different possibility, that's when your life can really shift, because you're not so firm on like things have to be this way or things have been this way, or we start creating expectations and start projecting them onto the future, and that's all we are going to experience unless we learn to kind of like open up and say, hey, does that have to be true? So one of the things that gets me really riled up is how they I mean, not only source material, but again, people that produce content, the focus is a lot on like our projector aura absorbs. It absorbs. And the way I like to see this and explain it is, as a projector, you might really resonate with the idea or the concept of systems. I think systems are something that comes very natural to us. So the way that I started to see it when I started reading source material and started playing with this was that if we have a system, that there are certain settings that are like default settings. However, that doesn't mean that we can't upgrade the system. And the example that I like to use is like, for example, a car. A car, let's take like just a basic car, has like its engine is built, like let's say every car has the same engine of the same type of car. And let's say you want to modify the car because you want to use the car for racing. And there are people who modify their vehicles. They add different mufflers, or they tweak the engine, or they add certain things in order to make that system, the engine, run differently, run more efficiently, maybe be a little bit louder, maybe have that little roar in the motor. They can add certain upgrades or change out certain parts. Or think of like a computer. If you build your own computer, you can customize it. You can change out parts and upgrade them. So it's taking that concept, and I'm not explaining it the same way that I explained it with her, but I hope that you guys get the gist of it. It's like our projector aura. If we were to look at it as a system, or like, okay, the projector aura has this default setting. Let's look at it that way. And the default setting is to expand outward and absorb. Okay, that's the default. However, once you start playing with energy, you'll start to notice that that's not the only option available. It's not you can tweak the feature, okay? So one of the things that I had my friend do is close her eyes. So I'm just going to invite you to close your eyes, and you're gently going to tune in to your aura, your energetic field, okay? And as you're tuning into your field, if you were to imagine it as like this radius around you, like a radar, how far out does your radar extend? How far out does your radar extend? Let's just see what you get. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to start visualizing or feeling how that radar gets closer and closer and closer to your core. Wherever you feel your core is located. When I'm thinking of my core, I think of my authority. My authority comes from my G center, so that's kind of like the base of my core. And I visualize that radius or that radar getting closer and closer and closer to my core until it's almost like my energetic field or my aura is kind of being worn like a bodysuit. It's not necessarily extending outwards if I don't want it to. So just feel into that and see how it feels. Then you can practice extending it outwards again. You can extend it outwards, back to where like you originally saw it, and see how that feels. And then again, you can draw it closer to you, closer to your core. And it might take a little bit of practice, but this is something that you can play with on your own. Whenever you're ready, you can wiggle your fingers and toes and open your eyes. Okay, that essentially was a practice that I shared with my friend, and this is something that I do a lot because another thing that I hear projectors talk a lot about is like when you're going to grocery stores, there's almost like this bitterness or annoyance of like, are people going to talk to me? Am I going to attract stares? And the thing is, like, you don't have to. Again, how far out is your energetic field? Because in a way, people feel it. But when I go out and about, like, I've practiced keeping my energetic field closer to my body. Now, another thing that I hear people say is that within the human design community is that it's mechanics, that you can't do anything about it. Personally, I have issues with that because I believe that we're much more powerful than we're led to believe. And it's my energy field. If it's my energy field, like, I have a say as to how much it goes out, how much I absorb, but maybe I wasn't as aware of that fact as when, like, I started questioning things. I'm like, wait a minute, why do I have to feel like a human vacuum cleaner picking up on stuff that's not pleasant, that isn't healthy for my system, that's overwhelming me, that's impacting my quality of life and my experience. So that's the reason why I decided to start looking for like a different alternative. So okay, so let's go to this phrase that they say, that it's mechanics, that there's nothing you can do about it. If after hearing me explain that practice, that exercise, you're still kind of like, I don't know how I feel about it, I would invite you to ask yourself an uncomfortable question. I ask myself this question all the time because it really gets me looking at, the story a little bit differently. And the question is, what do I get out of picking up on so much from my environment? Because we could easily be stepping into a victim mentality without even realizing it. And we don't necessarily have to. We can step into a more empowering way of being, okay? So what do I get out of it? Is it that I get to complain? I'm playing a game and sometimes I forget to go back and check on it, so I set timers to remind myself. Okay, what do I get out of it? Is it that I get to, be like, tell people, oh, I'm just super sensitive, or like whatever it may be. I'm not going to go into it because I don't want to feed into it, but I hope you get my point. It's about reclaiming your personal power, reclaiming your energetic field, and learning to play with the energy and manage it and become a master of your energy. And as projectors, I don't know about y'all, but for me, that's something that I really like. It really excites me, like managing energy and just seeing what I can do with my energetic field, what it is that I pick up on. Um, the difference that I felt from like being able, or it being easier to be around people without feeling so overwhelmed or things like that. Now, there are a few caveats that I want to include in this just so that you have awareness around this. Even though this is something that I tend to practice quite regularly, like especially like let's say I'm heading into a store, before I get out of the car, I tune into my energy field. Okay, where is it? Let me bring it a little bit closer to my core, and then I'll go out and run my errands or do whatever it is that I need to do. Sometimes I find that I can still pick up on things, and these are all theories, so if you experiment with this and you feel like you want to share what you got from it, by all means, I invite you to comment down below. But I find that sometimes I still pick up on things, and I want to say there may be like 2 or 3 different reasons that I've kind of been able to identify. One, sometimes I feel like I kind of have this long-standing intention with the universe, with God, that if I am able to be of service to someone, no matter where I am, no matter who they are, I am open and available to being of service. So sometimes it's like I can pick up on something, even though I've got my energy field quite close, but it's because I'm kind of being led or nudged to be of service in a particular way, even if it's tiny, even if it's someone, so suddenly noticing, oh, they feel like they look a little down, or they look like they're having a bad day, or they're, depressed, or they're whatever. And just by kind of like being aware of that with my energy, I just by like saying hello or how are you, how's your day going, I can provide a little bit of relief. Doesn't mean I'm going to save them, doesn't mean it works all the time, but sometimes I do find that, we can bring in this concept of fractals. Sometimes you'll come across someone who's on your fractal, and you'll be able to kind of be like a little bit of light in their day if they're having a bad day, or, maybe give them a little piece that they had been searching for, and maybe they didn't have as much awareness around what, that was what they were looking for. So that's one thing. The other thing is that sometimes like I'll pick up on something because it'll in a way keep me protected. It's like this isn't the right place, or like this isn't the right person. There's something about this person that isn't safe. There's something about the environment that isn't safe. So I'll still pick up on that, and it'll let me know, either kind of like look around, see if there's someone or something shady going on, or sometimes it's been a sign to like get out of here. Like, this is not a good time to be in this place. And I will, okay, I'll pivot. I'll go somewhere else, or just postpone my plans. Like if it's a specific store or something, I will turn around and either go somewhere else or go home, or just change my plan. The third one, I feel like there's a third one, but I don't remember what it is. I can't quite remember. Like, I don't know if this is it, but I'm just going to include this one. Sometimes there's a lesson, and this might be the third one. Sometimes there's a lesson that I need to learn, and kind of like the easiest way to be able to learn the lesson is by being able to pick up on something energetically, even though I might feel that I have my energy field quite close to me. There's something that I need to learn, so that kind of gets overridden a little bit in order for me to learn that lesson, or to be able to receive an insight, or be able to have like a certain experience that I need to have in order to be able to talk about it, and maybe like have a little bit of a teaching moment to be able to share with other people. So I think those are the main 3. So again, it is a practice. And another thing I want to mention is that when you're doing this, you gotta pay attention to like, what is your energy like as you're doing this practice, okay? Because this is another thing I shared with my friend. Like, you kind of have to get to the point where you're like, no, I am not available to being a human vacuum cleaner. I am a human being. It is my energy field, and I have some say, or I have a lot to say, depending on what you can get behind. I have more say than I thought I did of how far out it extends. Now, let me add this in here. I say this especially like if you're going out and about, you're running errands or you're at work. If there is no invitation, you are in no obligation to pick up on stuff that isn't yours. And notice how I say that. Feel into the energy of that, because that's kind of like the energy that you have to embody in order for this to like really, really work. And I told my friend, like, whenever I do this, it kind of feels like a bam. Like, no, I'm not available for this. It's not like, well, I heard about this exercise on this chick on YouTube and she mentioned this and she explained it this way. And I was just going to try and see what happens. Like, okay, it might work in the beginning because I feel like when you're just learning to do something, especially if you can, like, I'm really big on like asking for guidance because I feel like things work much better and more effectively when I do ask for guidance and I have that support. I am Hope Motivation, so do with that what you may. So in the beginning, it might still work because you're kind of like playing with the energy. I'm like, oh, okay, let me see if there's something in here. So there's that kind of energy like, well, I don't know about this. Let me give it a try. And there's this energy of like, this is interesting. I had never thought of doing it that way. What if I did it that way? It's a little bit different. This one's kind of like, this one's kind of like, ooh, a little bit of curiosity. Like, okay, let me see if let me just try and see what happens. And then we've got this other one where it's like, no, no. I'm not willing to pick up on stuff that isn't mine. So from this point forward, I'm going to keep my energetic field close to me, especially if there isn't an invitation. If there is an invitation, then I feel like your energy is just naturally going to expand to be able to pick up on a little bit more. Like, I feel like this happens a lot when I work with clients. But there is more of like an invitation of like, here's my energy, what do you see, guide me, I'm open to your guidance. Like, it's more open, like I have more freedom. So again, pay attention to the energy, play with it, especially if you're very sensitive. I want to say this works again, not only if you're a projector, if you have a lot of undefined centers in your chart, no matter your type, I want to say it's still going to work. So I think that's all I wanted to share for now. If you decide to give it a try, please feel free to come back and let me know how it went. If you have any comments down below, any comments that you would like to share, sorry. My brain is still trying to think at the same time, like, is there anything else I want to say? So let me pause and make sure that there's anything else that I want to say. I'm also in a little bit of a rush because my phone battery is about to die, so I kind of wanted to get everything out. Okay, I think that's it for this video. If there are any questions that you have, or if you try this out and you want to share your experience, I invite you to drop that down below in the comment section. If there's a juicy enough question, maybe I'll do a part 2 to this video, or I'll just answer in the comment section. Okay, if you're interested in working with me, you can find more information on my website, and I would also invite you, if you want to follow along on my journey, you can find me on Instagram. My handle is @Ginie. And that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you next time.
This is just something that popped into my mind when I was hearing you talk about like the neighbors and the thin wall. Sometimes when like I'm in a, like, let's say I'm in an environment with a lot of people, or I'm starting to feel overwhelmed, or I'm picking up on something, what I'll do, there's several things you can experiment with. Okay, so just feel into them. The projector aura, like, we're taught that it's absorbing, right? So the way I visualize the projector aura is kind of like a tidal wave that just like it emanates from you out into your environment, and it's just kind of like a vacuum cleaner. It's picking up on all this stuff, and that's kind of like the default setting when we're not as aware. That's what happens, okay, mechanically. But this is the issue I have with human design, wherever sometimes people use the phrase like it's mechanics, you can't do anything about it. But I always have issue with that. I think it activates my incarnation cross and the individual circuitry. Because I think of a car, I'm like, yeah, a car is mechanical, but once a car is built, there are people who make modifications. I think of like cars that are used for racing, they tweak the engine and they add, maybe a different muffler that sounds different. So there are upgrades that you can do to a system. Like, it's not fixed. So that's my thinking of why I feel like also my human design concept might be like not very source based, because, and it fits with my design, because I'm looking in to bring new stuff. But anyways, okay, that's the default. What I started playing with is having my energetic field closer to my body. So if you visualize kind of like a radar, kind of like a circle around you, if you were to kind of close your eyes, like, how far out is your radius currently right now? And then with your intention, with your command, with your desire, you can bring in that radius closer and closer and closer to you so that it's not picking up as much from the environment because you don't want it to. It's your energy. And this is something that came up on a call recently that I did, because this was a projector that I had talked to a little bit more like in this format before you. They mentioned how they've heard me say that, but they can't quite wrap their head around it. Like, I think she said something like, I wish I could do that, but I haven't been able to yet. And it really kind of, it feels to me like you're activating your will. Like, even if you don't have a defined ego center, we all have will. It just might be used differently, when it's defined or undefined. So there are moments where I'm like, I am not available for this, but the energy feels like boom, like there is no room for anything else. So when I'm in an environment or in a situation where I'm feeling like I'm reaching the end, and this could apply with many, with work, with, whatever, I was like, again, hope motivation, I tend to direct my thoughts to God. I bring him into the process. You can visualize, source energy, whatever you feel comfortable with. And I tell him, I am no longer available for this. Like, if I had neighbors like that, and I'm like, okay, look, I'm in this apartment. It's on the market. I do want to sell it. If there's any part of me that's still emotionally attached to this apartment and that's blocking the buyer from coming in, help me identify that in a gentle way, please. Gentle, but enough that I can pick up on it. But for the time being, this is impacting my health. So I'm going to leave it up to you, dealer's discretion, like how you want to handle that, whether he decides to inspire the neighbors to go out for the day or whether, they chill, it's not as loud. That's one option. Another thing that I thought of was kind of using like that sourcing meditation that you shared with me, but using source energy to kind of create like an energetic wall on top of that thin wall. So like source energy is creating kind of like a buffer or a filter so that noise doesn't get to you. And here's like where you use your imagination. Like I find that's one of the things that when we grow up, we stop playing with, and it's so powerful to play with your imagination and not doubting it, or even like when you're just starting to play with energy, getting curious, like, ooh, I wonder what would happen if we did it this way. And it's kind of like designing a little system and seeing what happens. Like, oh, okay, that kind of worked, but then I realized, this, and then like that, okay, let me tweak the system. So that's what it feels like to me. And I just wanted to share that because I think you're doing great, recognizing that you don't have to react to it. Personally, I believe that there's also more that we can do. We're just not taught how to do that. And once we start learning to think in those ways, it's kind of like really, I want to say like life gets to be a little bit more fun because it really brings in like your creative powers of, ooh, what if I did it this way? Or what if this happened? Or, and it starts opening up your mind to infinite possibility. Well, not infinite because, we're still, it can take a lot of practice to be able to get to that place where your mind really opens up to anything. But maybe, it gets you to start thinking about things, the possibility of things being different, even though, let's say, you're still in the same apartment and the same neighbors are still there. So I just wanted to share that real quick.